I think number one is virtual venue. This is a very new kind of idea. And I think it's important that we are aligned on that because we use that in our product, right? So virtual venue, what does that mean? It's a little bit tricky to define. So one of the ways to look at it is, if a physical event happens in a physical venue, then a virtual event would happen in a virtual venue, right? But when we were trying to define that, it's not as simple as that, because when you look at this and when you try to go into detail, right? So what is the virtual venue here? Is that the laptop that the event is taking place on? Is that the website? Is it the live streaming platform which is powering the video? Is it a software? Is it an application, right? So we wanted to define that. And I think it all goes through being clear on what we mean by virtual. And one way that we went about doing this is actually by starting from the bottom and then making our way up, right? And every level that we move up is actually added in complexity. So for example, what we mean is that if we start from the most bottom layer, which is the electrical devices, so that's what we have at the bottom, right? Electrical devices, which is everything that runs on electricity, right? So this is pretty simple. This is what we don't really realize is that today, most of our devices are electrical, right? That goes from your kettle in your kitchen down to the most powerful supercomputer, right? So all depending on electrical. The next level are electronic devices. And this is where those devices has electronic circuits and some simple kind of logic capabilities here. So this, you can think of maybe the old school televisions or radios, which use transistors. These were one of the first electronic devices. These electronic devices then gave way to digital devices, which today, the most common one, of course, is the computer, but it's also your smartphone, your tablet, and whatnot, right? And these, they run on bits and bytes, and more importantly, they store and process information, and increasingly complex amount of information and data, right? So through the digital devices, then, this is where we've been able then to have another layer of complexity on top of that, which is the virtual layer, right? So it's like a construct which is built on top of digital system and digital models. So for example, if you build a 3D environment model using a digital model, right? Like a game, so then that will create a virtual space. So that's the difference here. And all of these, virtual is very different to the rest here, because the rest can be defined as a device. You have an electrical device, an electronic device, a digital device. But virtual, on the other hand, is more of an idea, an abstract concept. It's a notion, right? And it has that notion of a space. So this is one way to look at things, and which then helped us to actually define what is a virtual venue. So this is our own definition of virtual venue. It is a virtual space which is usually created through an application or a software, and then which possesses features and services that allow an event to happen, and then of course to be experienced. So from that definition, what's very useful here is that it helps us to see things in a different way, right? So from that definition, even things like Zoom can be considered as a virtual venue. So you have a group of people meeting together, having a video conference, and then sharing the same discussion, right? Sharing ideas, and you can do an event on Zoom, and which is where they had the high demand when the pandemic happened. Everybody flocked on Zoom. But by the way, not only Zoom here, there's Zoom, there's Skype, there's any other meeting or video conferencing tools, right? Of course, then you have your live streaming platforms like YouTube, Twitch, Vimeo, etc., where you can live stream events with people chatting at the same time. But not only video-based platforms, but audio-based as well. So there's Clubhouse, which I'm sure most of you would have heard, which is an audio-based app where, again, you can create a space where a group of people can then share a discussion, share a topic, can hold an event technically, right? Even though it's purely audio. You can even have things like Netflix watch party, where a group of people watching the same movie at the same time, sharing the same experience, right? And then last but not least, even games. So games like Fortnite, which is a huge, massive multiplayer online virtual game, which is the perfect place for people to hold virtual events, and which they have been doing actually. So they have been having concerts within the Fortnite game, and which has been hugely successful. So that's how we like to look at things, and I think that was worth, we wanted to share that with you guys as well, because you could be looking at these tools and even any other new tools that would be coming along the way, because depending on your audience, depending on the attendees or your customer, you could be looking at different tools and not only be sticking to the more, the more common ones, right?